Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Today, we are going to be doing some art journaling. So I'm glad that you've taken some time for yourself to just kind of spend some time being creative. You can let out any kinds of emotions or feelings or different things that you're working through, or just enjoy having some time to yourself and having some beautiful colors and having some space and having some friends today to kind of just be with for a little bit. So we're going to spend some time together today doing some watercoloring. And then we're going to go back through our watercolors and we're going to add some ink to it. And the ink may be in the form of something like a Sharpie marker, or it might be like a gel pen. So there's lots of different ways that you can add ink. And this is one of those kinds of classes where it's good to be able to it's a good starter class because there's not a lot of prep, there's not a lot of setup, and there's definitely not a lot of cleanup. So let's go ahead and switch over to the other camera, and I'm going to show you some of the kind of things that we're going to be working on. So here are a couple of examples of some art journaling that I've been doing recently, kind of playing with colors, playing with lines, playing with designs, and of course having some words. But you don't always have to include words on your art journaling, so we'll talk about that too. So no pressure if you don't feel like you want to put words to any feelings right now. There are other ways around that. But this is the watercolor pad that I'm going to be using. It's an Artist Loft 90 pounds watercolor paper. And this paper is 9 by 12. So I like to take my 9 by 12 sheets and cut them down a bit. You can feel free to use the entire sheet, but I'm going to break them into smaller pieces because I really kind of like this postcard size to work with. I think it's much easier for me to be able to fill the space when it's a smaller space to work with. And also it's helpful because if I want to, when I'm done, I can easily put this onto a greeting card and I can send this in the mail to someone if it's something I want to share with someone else. So I think this size, cutting this 9 by 12 paper down, I'm going to cut it down to fourths. So cutting my 12 in half to 6 inches and cutting my 9 in half to 4.5. And I'm going to have 4 little slices of watercolor paper that are each going to be 4.5 by 6. Now you can cut your paper in whatever way you want. And sometimes I like to cut my paper to make more of like a bookmark size. So if you want to cut some longer strips or some skinnier strips, feel free to cut whatever kind of size you want. But I'm going to start off with a couple of these. And I am going to kind of keep painting on several at the same time. And then I'll kind of push each one off to dry and start another one. And while that's drying, I can work on something else. And the whole point is to kind of give us a little bit of time for these to dry so that we can come back over them with some of our ink, whether that be our markers or our gel ink or any of the other things we might have. So of course, since today's art journaling involves watercolor, I'm going to be using our 36 watercolor. There are different sets, different pans that have different amounts and different colors. Something like this is just fine. So feel free to use whatever you have. Any kind of watercolors you can get your hands on. If you don't have the pans and if you have the tubes, play along with us that way. And I need to start off by getting my watercolors wet. And professional artists would use a spray bottle to spray their watercolors to get themselves started. But the Megan method is going to be to just take my fingers and dip them into my water. And I really just go ahead and put some dots of water on each of my colors. This is just the Megan method. It's not patent yet. I don't know if anyone knows about it or anyone uses this method besides me, but when you don't have a spray bottle and you're a little bit lazy, this is what I do to kind of
Hey
get my
Megan,
ready to go. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not for sure if you saw the comment. Someone asked if you could somewhat explain what is art journaling.
Ooh, I love that question. Thank you for asking. So, my interpretation of what I think art journaling is just letting colors and sometimes using words and pictures kind of to help you express things. So, I love junk journaling also. And so I'm going to show you a little show and tell right here. This is a nice recollections journal from Michaels. And what I like about this one is that it comes with white paper and it comes with craft paper in it. So in this junk journal, I kind of collect all different kinds of things. So some of you may have come to one of my other classes where we did affirmations using jelly prints. So this is more of a jelly print style. And then I still have some other things where I'll make some colors, put some colors down, and then start going back and adding in. So this is a little bit similar to what we're going to be doing today. Just trying to go through some things, figure some things out. When I like to write on mine, I don't always need it to make sense to someone else. I just need it to make sense to me. So let me show you a good example of that. When I'm doing something like this one, when you look at this one, you probably don't know the order in which I wrote these words, and the saying that's hidden inside of this picture might not be clear to you or might not make sense to you. Same with this one. So it's not about somebody else taking this and knowing exactly what I feel or how I felt when I was doing this, but it's about me putting it onto paper. So this is always a good way for me to kind of, I'll jump around. It won't necessarily be in order. So it's not necessarily for someone else. It really is just for me in the moment. This one might be a little bit easier to read, but still, I sometimes like to hide my hide and disguise some of my feelings because I don't need it way out in the open, but I do want you to work a little bit to be able to understand it. So in this one, I kind of take that circular path, and if you do follow that circle, you could probably figure out exactly what I was trying to say. And then this is something that I would then put into my junk journal or my art journal and maybe add a little date, add a time, add a description. If there is something that goes along with a particular event or something that's happening that you either want to commemorate or you want to kind of work through, then that's always a good idea to be able to go through later and be like, oh, I remember when I felt that way and I don't really feel that way anymore, or I'm glad I'm in a better place, or I'm glad that this is a place I can get to again, and all those kinds of things. So these ones I'm flipping through right now in the back are more paper crafting kind of art journaling, using lots of stickers, using lots of paper, and kind of just playing around with different colors. So it doesn't always have to be super serious. It can be really fun and random as well, but it's nice to kind of keep them all in one place in this journal. So highly recommend getting yourself one of these journals and playing in as many different media as you can. So grab a jelly plate. I think Felicia was able to put into the chat a link to the affirmations class. So if you weren't able to take that one with me and you are enjoying this, you can definitely check that one out. And in the affirmations class, we use something called a jelly plate, and we printed out these cool backgrounds, and then we use Posca paint markers on top to make some different affirmation cards that I can put into my art journal. We also did a class where we took some old photos of my grandma and added some embroidery floss. And so then these are things that I can put into my art journal too, and just kind of have some memories about her and some different things that I enjoy too. So lots of ways to be creative, and that's kind of the name of the game today. Whatever makes you happy and feel good is what you should be doing today. All right, I'm going to start on my first piece now that I have finger painted into some water into my watercolors. I'm going to be using washi tape. This is, of course, optional, but the reason why I'm going to use washi tape is because when I start to add water to this paper, the paper is going to curl up. It's going to absorb some of that water, and that's fine. We can then uncurl it and kind of straighten it out by putting it under a stack of books and things later. But for right now, I am going to tape it down to my surface for two reasons. I'm going to tape it down to kind of help keep some of the curling from messing up any design I might be trying to create. And I'm also going to be taping it down because taping it down is going to leave a really cool border. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So you'll notice on these how I have that crisp white border around this particular watercolor bookmark, because this is where the washi tape was, so the watercolor didn't bleed into that. So you can just go ahead and pull up your washi tape, and then you have these really nice straight lines. So I like that effect, which is why I'm adding some tape. If you don't have a washi tape, you could use something like masking tape as well, but you just want to use a tape that's not super, super tacky, because you don't want to destroy your paper when you rip it up. You don't want it to be so adhesive. So the journal that I was showing before is a recollections journal, and it has 128 sheets. Some of them are white paper and some of them are craft paper. And this is found in the aisle where you would find things like stamps and alcohol inks and some of the other card making kinds of things in Michael's. And of course, you can also get it online. All right, so I'm going to show you two of kind of my favorite styles of setting down colors that we can later kind of build upon. And one of those is one like I've shown you already, where it's kind of circular and I kind of spiral out. So we're going to take some colors and we're going to start with kind of a circular piece in the sun, and we're going to keep circling it out. And then we can use that to kind of do some of this twisting and turning kind of journaling. So I'm going to start with one of my watercolor brushes. And a watercolor brush, the preferred watercolor brush are these Artist Loft round brushes. And the reason why the round brushes work best for watercolor is because they're so absorbent and they hold a lot of water in this tip down here. So I'm going to start with a method called wet on wet. And what wet on wet means is that I'm going to wet my brush by dipping it into some water, and my paint is already wet. So and also you can make your paper wet. So if I put a little puddle of water, I'm going to go kind of in the center. I'm going to put a little circle of water right here. Then I'm going to take some of my wet paint and I'm going to add to that circle. And I'm going to kind of spiral that out loosely, leaving some white space. And then I might add in another color, maybe another one of the warm colors like an orange or a yellow. And I can go in between some of that, or I can build out from that. And it does not need to be perfect. This is definitely just a see what happens, kind of play with colors sort of class, not necessarily specific techniques. You can always go back to the things that you already have and add water to what's already on your paper and spread it. And by spreading what's already down, you can kind of get variations and shades of the colors that you already have and kind of spread them out further. But I really just like this warm up of kind of starting with some sort of center and kind of swirling out. So while you're doing this, feel free to kind of use it as almost like a meditative experience of maybe there is something that you're focused on right now. And so if there's some kind of feeling or some kind of emotion that you want to kind of think about it spiraling out or spiraling in, or you can think about it in terms of like love and compassion spreading out into the world around you. But just kind of enjoy that feeling of playing with colors and playing with the
And
water.
Megan,
Yep.
what is the size of the brush you're using right now?
The one that I'm using right now is an 8. So they do have numbers on them. And I'm using a size 8. In the package that I had suggested, there's several different colors. So, or several different colors. There's several different sizes, but the one I happen to be using right this minute is an 8. So feel free to keep adding, feel free to keep going. I usually try and stick to just a couple of colors. I don't go too crazy with my different colors. And if I want to add in colors, I usually do variations by adding some more water. Also, feel free to play with this if at any point you want to pick the whole thing up and let it drip and just get a new design that way. Or if at any point you want to add splashes of water or splashes of color on top, feel free to do that as well. And if you have questions, you've been doing a great job of putting them in the chat. So just keep doing that and I'll see what I can do to help answer. So how do you decide which colors to combine? Great question. So a color wheel is awesome for you to help you pick out the colors. Remember that on your color wheel, the colors that are across from each other are always complementary and are going to look very nice together. You can also pick colors from the same family. So I chose to pick all warm colors, kind of making sure to use the oranges and the reds and the pinks and the yellows kind of family. And then if you wanted to do more of a cool picture, you can use some of the ones that are more of like purples and blues and greens. So it is hard to know when to stop without getting it muddy. One of my things too, and something that I learned when I'm doing art journaling, is that I need to leave space. And this is like a life lesson. This isn't just a painting lesson. I love to fill the whole entire page with color, and sometimes you got to let things breathe and you got to let some of that white space in. Thank you, Felicia. So yeah, feel free. So the color wheel that Felicia just put in the center obviously has our primary colors and then our secondary colors and our tertiary colors. So feel free to kind of play along with those. And yes, do leave space, leave some white space. Don't be afraid of having some white on your paper and letting that kind of go. And also, you're not done painting until you're done painting. So if you don't like what's going on, if it is getting muddy, then you can let it dry a little bit and you can add some more on top until you get it to a place that you like. So this is my first painting, and this is all I'm going to be doing on this one. And I am going to move it to the side, and I am going to let this dry. If you have space, I'm moving it because of the camera, but if you have space to leave this taped down where you have it taped down as it dried, that would be great. But I'm going to move it up here out of the camera a little bit so I can put the next piece down. And I'm going to use another one of the pieces that I cut at the beginning. And I cut all of these pieces to be 4.5 by 6 inches, but feel free to use whatever size you choose. And if you want to keep working on your first one, please do. Completely up to you. The next one that I'm going to kind of play around with is going to be more of like almost little rainbows kind of things. What I like about this kind of setup for an art journal is that it has this white space like I was talking about, and that's a really good place for you to write some sentences or to put some feeling and some different things into that. So the next one we're going to do is going to be more like this orange one I just showed you, or I'm probably going to work with some cooler colors this time because I love blues and greens. Those are my favorites. So I'm going to do something with little almost like rainbows. And when I have all these rainbows, I'm going to leave myself some places to be able to write some things when it dries. So I'm going to be taping down my next sheet. And I'm curious, put in the chat if you've ever done watercoloring before, if this is honestly your first try at it. I'm curious to know. Watercolor is a great place to start. Lots of no rules, just fun, in my opinion. You've done it before? Cool. First try. Okay. Well, welcome. What's nice about watercolors too is that they're so portable. So if you have a water bottle and you're taking a hike and you have a tiny little palette in your backpack, you can just pull it out, have a little journal, grab some inspiration from the world around you. And it's such a portable craft and not very expensive. So a nice hobby to pick up. Second try, and this is someone's favorite medium. I'm so glad. Lots of watercolor. Great. I'm struggling currently with my washi tape because I lost the beginning, but I'm trying to tape down this next piece, and I'm going to start a little bit of kind of like a rainbow or little arches on this next piece. So I once had an amazing teacher at some point in my life who, when I was going through something difficult and I couldn't quite find the words to tell her about it or to explain it to her, she put a paintbrush in my hand and said, "Show me what you're feeling." And I've never forgotten that. So if you don't know what you're feeling or you don't know how to explain it to someone, art is always such a great healer. Put a paintbrush in your hand, put a marker in your hand, and see what happens. I did use a size 8 brush, and it is a round brush. So yes, a lot of times they're called watercolor brushes, Artist Loft watercolor brushes you can search. You don't have to search specifically by the size. They come in kits and come in sets where you can have lots of different sizes, and there's lots of different types of Artist Loft watercolor brushes. So feel free to check that out. All right, here we go. So now I'm going to dip into some different colors. And sometimes when I'm doing my watercolor too, I like to have two different water cups. I like to have a cup for my warm colors and a cup for my cool colors because I don't want to take blues and put them into my yellow. So I do have a second cup. Sometimes I also keep like a little jar of water and a bunch of little cups so that I don't have to keep getting up from my desk if I start to get the water too out of control. So this time I'm going to be using some cooler colors, and this time I'm going to be doing kind of more like arches and rainbows. So I am going to use some blues and greens. I'm going to try and tell myself to use space, and I'm going to start with kind of like a little arch, and it can be as big or as small as you want, and keep building. They can be different thicknesses. They can definitely be different colors. So there's a question about how much should should a person art journal? And of course, that definitely depends. Also, I think something that's really helpful is if you are using it kind of in a therapeutic sense rather than just, for fun and interest, to share it with whoever you're working with, kind of let them see some of the things that you're trying to express so that you can have kind of a starting point in a conversation. That's always a good way to do it. You can also, I wouldn't say I do this every day, but it's something where, especially if there is something I'm working on, I'll pull some things out and have a session where I just kind of spend some time with myself and try and work through and figure some things out. And you don't always have to have the words for it, and you don't always have to do specific designs. You can kind of just let the colors do the talking for you. Or maybe if it is like an anger or a grief that you're working through, you can just splash some things down just to kind of represent whatever it is that you're feeling. And you'll notice that I'm taking the arches from different directions on my paper just to kind of give them all kind of towards the center, but from different starting points. And this is going to give me plenty of places to write about whatever it is I want to write about. And I am so glad that so many of you are painting along with me right now. So I know this is personal, but if there's anything that anyone feels like they'd like to share at any point, we would love to have you hold it up and show us if you want to, or if you want to snap a picture of it. We have a Michael's Instagram called Learn with Michaels. And the Learn with Michaels Instagram is where we kind of talk about all the different classes and the different projects that we're doing. And so you can keep up with us there, and then we can show off any of the cool things that you make. It would be nice to use these in cards and mail to someone special. Yes, 1000%. And when we're in the next part, when we're actually doing some more of the journaling part, I'll definitely show you how you can turn these into cards very easily. I love snail mail. And I have a sister who loves snail mail even more than I do, if that's even possible. And she sends awesome cards all the time. So I have two different kind of setups. And please feel free to keep working on either one of those. I think I'm gonna at least start up one more. Maybe we'll see what we have time for. But the next one is going to be just very free form. It's not going to be anything circular, anything particular like these two. So the next one's going to be kind of more of a whatever happens, happens kind of thing. I'm going to move this one up to do some drying. There you
Megan,
go.
if someone is a little anxious and want to go ahead and have them to dry fast, would you
Mhm.
suggest for them to use maybe like a blow dryer or anything like that?
Sure. I mean, you can always use fans and blow dryers. Just know that with the watercolor, because it is so watery,
Or
that
maybe a heat gun?
it can change. I mean, yeah, sure, you can try it. Just, heat and paper, be careful. Danger. Would you please show us how to use the water brushes and also a technique to move the brush to create different shapes? Love it. Absolutely. Good suggestion. All right, taping this one down and then I'll show you a couple things. And if you have, there's another question. What kind of surface are you working on? It's so clean. That is nice. Thank you, Eileen. This is just a giant pad of paper that I have. It's a really nice surface. I sometimes work, if I'm trying to not mess up my paper, on craft paper is a really good clean surface to keep working on too, but this just happens to be a really large pad of paper that rips off. So when it does get too messy, I can hide it from you. So ha ha ha, I have tricked you. And I must have picked, this washi tape is not being my friend right now. I'm struggling.
Megan, once you tear it off, you got to fold the end so you can find it again.
You're right, Felicia. Felicia's so smart. I'm gonna do what she says. Look at me. I'm learning. This is why Felicia and I work together. We need each other. All right. Look at me. So smart. So smart. Okay. All right. Now I'm ready. So let's try some different things. So before I was telling you about wet on wet. So wet on dry is me taking a wet paint and putting it onto the dry paper. So when you put the wet paint onto the dry paper, you're going to get a certain texture, you're going to get a certain gradient. When you put wet on your paper and add wet to it, you're going to get a lot more playfulness. So you can kind of move this around and kind of direct where you want your water to go. And that's kind of fun to play with, kind of like a little kid splashing in a puddle. It's just fun. Give it some avenues. Or if you've ever been to the beach and watched a kid make little ditches, get all the water to go down the ditch, and just kind of play along with that. Also, feel free to pick up your paper and let things just kind of slide down in different directions. Play around with your brush too. So if I use my brush on the wide side, look at how thick it goes. And then if I kind of let up towards the end, I can get some thinness. So you can make some cool streaks by pressing down more and getting more of those bristles to touch the paper, and then kind of releasing and getting less. The round brush does have a nice thin tip at the very end. So if you just use the very end of it, you can get some really fine lines and details. And this one is just pure play. There's no hidden idea or thing that I'm going for here. Yes, so someone was asking, you can use a straw and blow through. I love that idea. That's a great idea. Awesome. Yep. So really feel free to explore. You can also put colors on top of each other, but of course, at some point when you do put too many colors on top of each other, you are going to get a little bit muddier. You can also use a smaller sized brush. So this time I'm using a 5. And so the 5 is going to be smaller. And I can be more precise on purpose with this smaller brush. So if I want to make shapes like little circles, or if I want to make some little ovals on purpose, I can, and kind of play around, add some swirls. And I have more ability to make fine lines with this smaller brush. It is relaxing. I'm glad you feel so too. Also, watercolor makes me think about looking into the clouds when you're little. And maybe you don't know what this is yet, but maybe you're going to look at it in a little bit and be like, oh, it's clearly an elephant. And maybe that might teach you something. And then this is where I get real deep into art therapy kind of things, where like if I see an elephant in this, then I'm going to go to a book and look up what an elephant symbolizes, and maybe it's going to tell me something about myself. So yeah. This video will show back up on YouTube on Monday. So if you want to gather some more supplies or gather some more friends and try this class again, you can try it as many times as you want to. And all of what we're doing right now is kind of allowing time for the other ones to dry so that we can come back and do some more. Oh, so someone wants some more watercolor classes with more color wheel work, which is something we can definitely do. I agree. I think kids, adults, everybody can benefit from this art journaling kind of style. It's something that people with different ability levels too, and some with disabilities are still able to participate and have fun with as well. And then one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of splashing. So I'm going to cover my other two so that I don't mess them up. But when I add some splashing to it, I'm going to get a lot of water into the tip of my watercolor brush, and I'm going to pick a color. And this, I happen to be picking this darker blue. And then I'm going to use the bristles and kind of fling them towards this picture to get some extra texture on my design. Yes, and colors that symbolize things, yeah. So if you are drawn to certain colors, you can look those up and see, what you might be trying to tell yourself. And there you go. Now I've created a mess for you. All right. I'm going to move this one off to the side. Yes, you can do your own party for sure. And I want this satisfying feeling of ripping off this washi tape and having those really nice straight white lines. Makes all that washi tape work worth it for me. I'm going to take this one and put it off to the side, but this has a lot of interesting things going on that I can think about. And then I have my other two where I'm going to take off their washi tape. And I think the first one is dry. The round one I started with. And I think the rainbow arch one is dry too. So hopefully you're pretty close so we can move to our next step in our process. All right. So I'm going to go back to our round painting with kind of this spirally feeling. And I'm going to start with a Sharpie fine point marker. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take some of the lines of the color changes and I'm going to follow them with my Sharpie. So it doesn't have to perfectly follow it, but I'm going to kind of create some of the circles that already exist. And you can make one big spiral. You can break it into sections. Whatever you want to do is just fine. But kind of follow the movement of the paint you already laid down and add some black lines to it. Absolutely. So someone was saying that on this one I left the white spaces with, those are perfect places for writing. Absolutely. There's another. Can you use? I missed something in the chat. Can you use an artist pen? Absolutely. Yes. This does look like a galaxy. Looks like a galaxy, looks like a spiral, looks like a sun, whatever it is that you want it to be or need it to be. But really what I'm doing with the Sharpie right now is just kind of giving myself kind of some lines, kind of some space that I'm going to go back in with some words. So if you have words to put to this, if this means something to you, or if there's something going on that you want to write down and talk about, you can. Sometimes if you don't have the words yet, you can just kind of use the spaces. And another technique I do, so like this is a darker one. So maybe I don't really have words for this. Maybe I don't really know what this means quite yet, but I'll go back into some of these different spaces and I'll add some doodles or I'll add some more lines just to show how complicated the feelings are. So maybe I don't know what they are yet, but I'm still kind of thinking about it and just having some positive intention and having some time to kind of sort through it on your own is always going to be helpful. So in this one, if you don't have a particular poem or if you don't have a particular personal kind of writing you want to do, you can always pick some song lyrics. So maybe there's some song lyrics that speak to you or speak to whatever it is you might be wanting to kind of sort through, and you can copy some of those, or maybe there's a favorite line from a poem. And another thing that I tend to do is if I get stuck or if I'm stuck in something, I sometimes keep writing that same word over and over and over again to really kind of help work through that. So let's see. What I'm going to put on this one is that healing is not always linear. So this being in this circular kind of pattern is really where I'm starting with this feeling about it doesn't go in a straight line. You don't go from here to here and then you're magically healed. There's a lot of things that happen in between. There's a lot of different times you come back to the same place over and over again in different ways. And so you can add something like that if there's something personal like that that makes sense to you. Or maybe you want to talk about some stress or some chaos or some different things that are going on in your life and kind of work out around those rings. So I'm going to give everybody some time to kind of add whatever it is that you want to add to yours and just give you some space and some quiet to kind of think through that. So I'll take some pictures of the pieces that I'm working on because I'm willing to share these with y'all. And if you want to take a look at them, my own personal Instagram is the number 4M Coleman. And so you can check out some of my other pieces and kind of take some time and look through if you want to. Yeah, some people are sharing some of the things that they're writing. Take your time with this. You don't have to rush. It's yours. If at any point you do want to share, you can put a picture in the chat today, or you can add a picture on Instagram.
Hey, Megan,
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick note to those who may need all of the links that I've provided throughout this class. I do know that if you are on a computer or a laptop, you can actually click on the three dots that are in the chat area and click Save Chat. And you will be able at that point to get a pop-up or a link or however to the chat basically. So you will be able to have all of the links that I have provided throughout the class. So
Awesome.
just an option for you for those who may be searching or seeking that information.
Thank you, Felicia. And someone also put in the chat that it would be cool to write on a birthday or a Mother's Day card. So yeah, imagine doing something like this with the intention when you start putting down the paint, thinking about someone that you love or someone that you care for, someone you want to celebrate, and kind of let the colors do some talking and then add some extra words to remind them of how you feel and how much you care about them. So I'm going to put my spiral to the side and I'm going to start on my next one. But again, take your time, keep working on what you're working on. I'll talk for a little bit and then I'll give us a little quiet time again. On this one, you have a couple options. You can go through and kind of outline the shapes with your Sharpie again if you want to. I think I'm going to do that. So, like I was talking about with finding the clouds and turning the clouds into things, I love to have watercolor on paper and then kind of find some of those shapes and outline them in a Sharpie or a gel pen. So you don't have to do this part. This is kind of just something I like to do, but it might also be helpful in kind of getting your brain going and thinking about what feeling does this particular piece have and what kind of message do you want to put on it or what kind of designs and drawings do you want to add to it. And you can either write in the white space or you can write along the colors. And we do have our jelly pens too. So I'm going to switch over to one of those, kind of show you a little bit of a different technique. So with a jelly pen, you might get a lighter. So if you have some of the darker colors, you can use one of these white jelly roll pens to write some messages in the space. Or maybe I can write some messages in my colors, in my arches, and I could also add some different lines with my pen, with my Sharpie. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to give us some time again to kind of work on this next one and just kind of think through different things you want to write down. Like not being perfect with my lines. I think it gives it more fun. So this white ink pen is a Jelly Roll pen, and they're definitely available at Michael's. And it really helps me to write over top of some of those darker colors. So this is just a couple of things that I wrote down. This one's feeling a little bit more love and feeling cared for and things like that. And if you wanted to turn any of these into cards at any time, I would recommend putting them under a nice thick book to kind of flatten them out. And then I use double-sided tape or using a tape runner and just run some tape along this and then tape it down to one of these blank cards. And then I also like to sign my name at the bottom of any of the cards that I make so that people know that it's homemade and that I took some time and was thinking about you when I made this. So I'm just going to play around with my last design. Feel free to keep working on any of yours. And I will show off some of these final designs on my Instagram for M. Coleman. But do feel free to send some pictures in the chat, hold things up if you want to, or if you want to share with us, you can always tag us at Learn with Michaels so we can see what you're working on too. And then at some point, I like to take these and put them into my journal, maybe mark the day, mark the time, something like that, so I can kind of keep track of what it was. Yeah.
Man, there was a great suggestion saying that you can turn them into postcards
Ooh, yeah.
too.
And I even know that a lot of times they sell watercolor paper already printed with postcard stuff on the back. So you can actually mail it as is. That's a great idea. Who doesn't want some watercolor mail? And then someone else said that you could create these with students and laminate them, use them as placemats. I love that idea. Obviously, you can take any of these I was showing you before. If you make them into bookmarks, I would put some packing tape on the front and back of this and maybe punch a hole, add a tassel to make some really cool bookmarks too. Great suggestions. Oh, that's nice. A rain poem. Haiku. And I think I mentioned before, but sometimes I like to write the same word over and over again too. So maybe on this one, I'm thinking about freedom. And I might just keep kind of Having some intention when I'm writing it and just thinking about it, putting it out into the world, prayers, good feelings, mantras, all those kinds of things. And also like the way the gel pens can kind of add some texture. I use them for dots a lot or some different lines and squiggles in different places. I'm glad you're enjoying this. So we are getting towards the end of our class, but this doesn't have to be the end of your watercolor journey. So I am so glad that all of you have decided to take some time for yourself today and join me. I had a lot of fun. I hope that you did too. Feel free to check out some more of my classes. There are some already on the Michael's YouTube channel. If you want to check out the affirmations class, or if you want to check out any of our future classes on the michaels.com/classes page. Thank you for coming. I hope that you enjoyed yourself and have a really great weekend. Bye, everyone.